Junhe, it's great to have you here at PNSQC. I don't think you've spoken at the conference before. Your name seems unfamiliar. Have you spoken at the conference before?
It's the first time. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great to have you. I love your topic because it's really, really important. So
thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Why don't you go ahead and share your screen and we'll get things going. All right.
Okay. So I'm a DevOps engineer at Carrier. As part of my job, I integrated automatic testing to the CI/CD pipeline of DevOps. So that makes life a little bit easier for other groups like Dev, QA, and operations. So I'm just going to share a little bit of what I did. So DevOps is the intersection of QA, development, and operations. It has a lot to do with QA, agile development method. Yeah. So there are many goals for DevOps, including lower failure rate, faster mean time to recovery, things like that. But the key goal is improved. It's the last bullet point: improved deployment frequency. If you have that, you have all the other points. Organizations that employs DevOps method usually has better quality, better ability to have the right product because of improved deployment frequency. So if you search for DevOps, the definition on the web, you get a lot, some of them quite abstract. But at the core of it is the CI/CD pipeline. CI stands for continuous integration, CD stands for continuous delivery. So the process is developers code, then they build with the CI tool, then they deploy. But at the center of it is continuous testing, because nowadays software failure costs a lot and there's big impact. So continuous testing has become the centerpiece of DevOps. This is an example of CI/CD pipeline. This is what we have at Carrier. The CI tool is called TeamCity, and the CD tool is called Octopus Deploy. So developers can push their code into Git, and they can manually start a build in TeamCity, or TeamCity can automatically detect there's a new commit and starts a build. Once build is successful, it'll create a package and pass it to Octopus Deploy. Octopus Deploy then can deploy to different environments like Dev, QA, staging, or production. So all those stuff usually is done by a click of a button. So there are many types of tests that can be automated: unit test, integration test, functional test, or acceptance test. Integration test is the type of test that tests a group of software modules connected logically. Functional tests, what we did in Carrier is API testing. So we use Ready API, a software component by a vendor called, I don't know if everybody probably familiar with, SmartBear. So we use Ready API to do functional test. And acceptance test, we define it as we test a group of applications in the same environment. If they pass the test, maybe they can be promoted, maybe from staging to production. different tests are integrated differently in the different stage in CI/CD pipeline. Unit test usually is integrated with the CI tool. Integration test is usually integrated with the CD tool because they are run after deployment. Functional test is the most complicated to be integrated. They're integrated with both CI and CD tool. And acceptance test can be integrated with the CD tool or CI tool. In our case, we've integrated it with CI tool. Now for integration test, it can be run either in an environment on-premise or in the cloud. If it's run on-premise, it's a little bit easier to be integrated because everything is run on-premise. And if it's in the cloud, it's a little bit more complicated. Yeah. First, we need to deploy the code to the cloud, say in Azure. And then we deploy a web jobs. That's Azure's term for a background job. And the integration test is run in the background. And once it finishes, a test report will be generated. In the meantime, Octopus Deploy would keep polling Azure whether a test report is ready. If the test report is ready, it'll download the test report from Azure using a REST API call. Functional test is the most complicated to be integrated. We actually contacted Smart Bear at the beginning to see if they have any tools that we can use to integrate with CI/CD. At that time, they happened to come out with a product called Test Engine, which is specifically designed to integrate Ready API with CI/CD tool. So we were pretty happy in the beginning, but unfortunately, after some testing, we found out Test Engine did not work well with our proxy settings. So we end up having to integrate functional tests without the latest tool from Smart Bear. So what we did was we found Smart Bear actually has a plugin for TeamCity, which would allow TeamCity to start Ready API test. And then we extensively modified the plugin script so TeamCity can pass a number of variables to Ready API, including what test to be run, like what environment to test against, things like that. So the process is something like this. Octopus Deploy would deploy some code base to an environment. Then it'll use a REST API call to invoke Ready API test from TeamCity. And TeamCity in turn calls Ready API to complete the test. Test Engine, the component provided by Ready API, no, not Ready, Smart Bear, actually has a functionality that would process parallel requests. If there are a number of requests coming in parallel, Test Engine would queue them and pass it to Ready API one by one. So TeamCity right now, at the front end for Ready API, had to do the same thing as Test Engine did. And we found a way eventually to configure TeamCity to queue the jobs if there are a number of jobs coming in at the same time. So actually, Smart Bear later called us and asked us, how did we integrate Ready API with CI/CD without their test engine? And we told them TeamCity actually could do the job. So when all those tests are integrated automatically, the process becomes a little different. Developers still code, then they build, then they run unit tests, and then they deploy. And after deploy, automatic tests are run, including integration tests or functional tests. And when those tests are run correctly, the Octopus deploy can be used to promote environments from dev to QA to staging to production. So CI/CD with test automation makes dev to deploy more frequently and testing more frequently. It complements our agile methodology nicely. So is there any questions?
How long was your project from, let's say, from the starting to look at CI/CD?
Yeah. Can you repeat the question? We didn't quite hear it there, Junhe.
So the question was, how long did it take to when we start integration CI/CD to when we finish, right? So I'd say about 2 years, Chanty, right? About 2 years. Yeah.
And how long until you have your first integration running?
Well, it depends. So it depends on the type of tests. For unit tests, it's actually pretty easy, maybe several months. For functional tests, the proof of concept was several months. But if we want to propagate to different projects, different environment, it's much longer. Yeah. Sure.
When you mentioned like a integration test, when you move from the on-prem to cloud, it is a difficult. Because we recently moved all our servers, DevOps servers from the on-prem to cloud, but everything was fine. Give a more idea like why you need the integration test case not that great cloud.
Yeah, integration test on the cloud took us a little bit longer because for our, maybe everybody's integration test is different. For our integration test, we need to pass the test module like connection strings, URLs, all that stuff. And so when we pass it to integration test module in the cloud, and so like in Azure, the directory trees are a little different, especially if we want to run web jobs. So web jobs has its own directory trees that we need to stick to. So, and when we pass files from certain directory tree structure to the other, it's a lot easier when it's on premise, when you find file easily. But if you want to find files in web jobs tree structure, it's a little bit harder. And also, when on-premise, Octopus deploy is also on-premise. So when you download the test report, it's pretty easy. The test report just generates and you place it in Octopus deploy. But when it's in Azure, the test report is in Azure. You have to download the test report from Azure back to the Octopus deploy. And you have to always pull Azure whether the test report is there. Once it's there, you know the test has finished. Then you call some REST API call and download the test report. Sure. Oh, actually, before Octopus deploy, the cadence was like once a week, right? A little, even a bit more. But right now, people deploy every day, almost every day, several times a day. Yeah. Any questions from online?
Again, nobody asked any questions on that. Nolan, do you have any questions? I can't hear.
Okay,
Hi,
well, if
Phil,
you don't,
are you there?
yeah, I'm here. I guess we don't have any more questions. Okay, great. Thanks very
a lot.
much. Thanks very much for your talk, Junhe. It was